The following is a Tony Lasano podcast, an Opie show on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. This is Free Kicks. So, Adam, you just told me some news that I thought was interesting and we should share with our audience. There's a tournament here in the town that I live in Mount Prospect, called the Prospect Invitational. Right? It's a tournament for high school girls.
Yep.
Including Prospect High School. Well, we just heard that they renamed that tournament after a departed friend of ours who we coached together with, and you coached his daughter for years.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Welk. It's now known as the Joe Welk Memorial Tournament, and we tip our cap to them for that because Joe was a heck of a great guy.
He really was. I mean, the person he lived soccer through his kids, was so helpful, especially with the club, with Green White, that we had so much time with, and obviously with his high school too. So I only got to work with two of his children. I know he had some daughters previously as well that played, but yeah, what a great person. So we tip our hat to Joe today for sure.
And Joe came with us our trip to Holland and Germany back in 2017.
That's right.
He was part of that team that went over there. So thank you to Prospect for doing that. You've chosen well, and it is time for us to do Free Kicks.
And now, Free Kicks. Free Kicks with Illinois Youth Soccer Association's Director of Coaching, Adam Howarth, and Rick Kemper.
So we have a lot to talk about today. Beginning with the Champions League, which is now down to 4 teams. We have Manchester City, Real Madrid, AC Milan, and Inter Milan, which means some great teams are out again. Now Chelsea is out, and Napoli. That was kind of a surprise to me that Napoli was knocked out.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm frustrated in 2 ways. One, I'm really disappointed that Manchester City and Real Madrid is not the final. I think those are by far the 2 best teams.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's a shame that they're not in the final together. I mean, the semi-final. Now, it's a repeat of the semi-final from last year, which Real Madrid won. And then secondly, I'm happy for the 2 Italian teams, but I'm not necessarily completely convinced that they should be in a semi-final. Right. They deserve to get there. I'm not saying that they don't deserve to be there, but are they 2 of the best 4 teams left? Probably not. So
they did have a pretty easy draw on the way to the semifinals. I
agree. Now, there's no question, in terms of how it took place, with obviously one of the Milan, I think it was AC that beat Napoli, I believe, because they had the Italian quarterfinal. And Napoli is probably, I was surprised they got knocked out, as we talked about briefly earlier. It was a bit of a shocker that they got knocked out because Napoli is going to win the Italian league by a landslide.
Right.
So that was a bit of a shocker. But it constantly shows that those teams that consistently do well in the Champions League always find themselves in the semi-finals. And AC Milan has won it many, many times, right?
Yeah.
No more so than Real Madrid. I mean, as you mentioned, 14 times. I mean, that's twice as many as anybody else.
Yeah.
So that gives you an idea of how dominant they are. And then you got Man City that's been in the semi-final every year, pretty much, and obviously a few finals. Maybe it's this year. Maybe this is their year.
Well, the totals are Real Madrid has been in the final 17 times, won it 14. Manchester City's only been in the final once.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost it. I forget what team they lost it to.
I think that was the Chelsea game, if I remember. Yeah, the only team in London. Won it a couple of times. Yes, exactly.
But, you got to say, the path to the semifinals for Real Madrid and Manchester City was very difficult. I mean, they really Madrid has already knocked out Chelsea and Liverpool. And and Manchester City knocked out Bayern Munich and did it convincingly.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. They had to go through some serious teams. There's no question. I mean, that's not to take anything away from, what Inter Milan did. Benfica is always in and around the quarterfinals. They're pretty much a staple for that.
Right.
And they won on aggregate, although it was a heck of a game yesterday. Although, to be fair, I don't think too many people were watching it other than the Portuguese and the Italian fans. But everybody was probably watching the Bayern Munich Man City game. But Manchester City so dominant, and they just added that one person they needed.
I know,
and that's the difference. He's the guy scoring the goals, even though he missed the penalty kick. He's the guy that's made the difference. I mean, maybe my team Chelsea could learn from that. Maybe they need a striker.
Yeah,
just a thought. Just a thought.
Now,
but yeah, those
guys don't grow on trees, by the way.
No, definitely not. And he was, he's being paid over 19 million a year, so he's definitely getting his worth. But he is a player that has changed Manchester City considerably, because they are now consistently scoring goals, and they don't look like they're going to lose too often.
And if any team can beat Real Madrid, this is the only one, I think, of the Final Four that can.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think the whole world will be rooting for them to do so, because enough already with the Madrid thing, for crying out loud.
Yeah. I mean, massive credit to Real Madrid in terms of consistently getting back there every single year, semi-finals all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, they really do own the Champions League, that's for sure. But I think this is the year. Man City, I can probably think they're going to get it. And if they get to the final, they're going to be heavy favorites. There's no question.
Well, let's talk about the other semifinal too, because it is pretty interesting. Let's face it; it's an all Milan semifinal. AC Milan, Inter Milan. They have faced each other 235 times.
Wow!
Since 1929. Right now, Inter has won 87 times. AC has won 79, 69 draws. As you mentioned, AC Milan has been in the finals 11 times. They've won it 7 times.
Yeah.
And most recently in 2007. Inter has been in the finals 5 times. They've won it 3 times, most recently in 2010. So these are not, fly-by-night teams.
Right, exactly. And the interesting thing, I don't know if you mentioned this, but they've actually already played each other 3 times this season.
Yeah, right.
So that's the funny thing. So I think they've won 1 each and drew 1, if I remember. So it's very even. But it's going to be a great game, especially for the Italian fans. Obviously, I don't know if you knew this, but Italy was not in the World Cup this past time. So this might maybe make the Italian fans feel a little bit better that they've got themselves at least a guaranteed team in the final of the biggest club tournament in the world. So I think that may make them feel a little bit better. But my goodness, it's going to go down in history. There's no question. A semi-final like this, it'll be a great game for them. Yeah. Be interesting to see who comes through it. Both teams are at home. That's the nice thing. They're both playing the same stadium. So there you go.
It would be Manchester City versus Manchester United in the semifinals.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about what else is happening, because there's also a Premier League, if I remember right.
Premier League football. What's happening on the pitch?
And by the way, the Champions League resumes the semifinals in May, so we still have some time before we get there. But let's talk about what's going on in the Premier League. There's actually interesting battles in all 3 of the places that you look for battles in the Premier League, for the title, for the battle for 4th place, and the battle for relegation. And let's start with that title race, because it's playing out just like you mentioned last week. It's going to come down to that game next Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Manchester City against Arsenal.
Yeah, April 26th. We might have to push back our chat until after that game, that's for sure. But that's going to be a huge game. So, you look at it, Manchester City on fire, 5 wins in a row, a couple of draws, Arsenal being pegged back both games after being up 2 goals in both games. So if Man City wins their game in hand, they're going to be 1 point behind going into the Arsenal game. God, this is going to be great. Ultimately, it's probably one of the biggest games in the last few years. There's no question. So it's going to go down to the wire. That's what's really exciting.
All right. So check that out. And as you mentioned, our next show will be about that. We'll wait until after that game. But the battle for 4th place is getting kind of interesting. I kind of had written it off. But Newcastle has a big loss. Tottenham has a big loss. And don't look now, Aston Villa is only 3 points behind Tottenham, and they haven't lost in their last 5 games.
Just unbelievable. I mean, obviously our good friend Todd's got to be jumping up and down because he's seeing the lights of Champions League. This is not, he never must have thought this when Steven Gerrard was the manager just a few months ago. He was thinking, let's just stay in the league.
Right.
Now they're looking at Champions League. It's absolutely amazing what they've done. I mean, I remember us talking about the Chelsea-Aston Villa, the game of 10th place.
Yeah.
And now they've just surged ahead with, basically 5 wins in a row. So they are literally a couple of victories outside of being in the top 4. Newcastle's going down. They had a rough loss to Villa.
Yeah.
Villa looked great, by the way. I know it was a struggle for you to watch that one, but I'll give Todd all the credit to get up nice and early for that one. But
he texted me, but I did not watch it.
Every goal, 4:45, boom, every goal. But what a great! I mean, they played fantastically well. To give Villa a lot of credit, they looked extremely solid. They basically controlled the midfield and took care of business. So really good result for them. Puts them right back in the mix, and then Tottenham, again, very inconsistent, them losing to a Bournemouth team that's turning it around and pushing themselves out of the bottom 3. So it's going to come right down to the wire between really Aston Villa, Tottenham, Newcastle, potentially even Brighton and Liverpool on a bit of a surge too. So who knows?
Well, I've watched Tottenham now a couple of times. And I just can't understand how they're even as high up as they are because they really don't look very good at all.
You're absolutely right. I know the fans are very frustrated. Obviously, they don't have a manager. Everybody's talking about they don't necessarily have a real strategy moving forward. They've obviously got the interim manager. They're not sure where they're going. They're just literally floating in the water, not really going anywhere. And I think that's the frustration of the Tottenham fans. But you're absolutely right. How they stay there, I think the main reason they're there is Harry Kane.
Yeah.
He's the only guy that's keeping them there. And to a certain point, Son, who's starting to get a bit of form. But if it wasn't for Harry Kane's goals, Tottenham would be middle of the table with Fulham and Chelsea, no question.
Could you imagine a Harry Kane wearing a Chelsea jersey?
Oh, that would be great. I must confess, that would be awesome. That would be really good.
Because he's got to be getting frustrated. He has to be getting frustrated.
You would think so. He's got to start thinking about his next move. Obviously, he's Tottenham, born and bred, been there. That's his boyhood team. But my goodness, it's certainly getting to a point where what's next? And potentially, who knows, the next manager of a Chelsea could maybe influence it, especially if it's a Mr. Pochettino, for example.
Right.
You never know.
All right, let's also talk about the battle for relegation because the same 3 teams are in there, which is Nottingham Forest, Leicester City, and Southampton. They all look terrible. I'll grant you that. But there are 2 teams that are really battling to stay down there. And for me, the Leeds team, holy mackerel, they have just called it a season. They're getting crushed left and right.
Yeah, I mean, the manager came out and talked about how many hours he's putting in the office. I'm here 12, 14 hours. Well, obviously it's not enough because you're just leaking goals left, right, and centre in the back. I mean, Liverpool just absolutely put a pounding on this on Monday this past week, and I just don't know if they can stop teams from scoring. Yeah, I don't. I mean, Liverpool looked like they could score every single time they went down the field. So they've got to sort out their defensive woes. There's no question. Everton, same thing, struggling. These teams are all down there, and then now you've got Nottingham Forest, who've again kind of hit this. They had a little bit of a purple patch there for a while, doing well, and then all of a sudden now they've dropped down. So.
Well, I watched their last game. I watched Nottingham Forest, and they're not good. No. I think even the announcers were saying this is a championship team, meaning
you're right.
They should be playing in the championship, the second division, because they don't look good. So it's a battle, but it's a battle for suckiness. We'll see which team ends up there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the only teams that that I think are seeing pushing themselves out, like Bournemouth. My goodness, probably so many of us would have thought Bournemouth would have been in that bottom three. But you could look at the fight that they have. I mean, that result against Tottenham. I mean, the guy comes in as a sub, first goal ever he scored. What a result for them to score in the last minute. I mean, that changes their season. That to me keeps them up, just because they have that fight. Whereas the other teams, you're worried about where they're going. Are they fighting enough? Southampton especially, and Leicester. Although they played a little bit better in the second half, it was a tough game. The manager coming in, and you got Man City. I mean, just write that one off. But,
West Ham is another team that's starting to look a little bit better. Getting a draw against Arsenal, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And they were 2-0 down.
Yeah.
To come back as well. So that was give them a lot more credit. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think we're down to maybe 5 teams potentially now.
Yeah.
Although anybody could get sucked back in. West Ham has a little bit of breathing room, but Leeds with 29 and Everton 27. They're just there on goal differential. So anything can happen.
Yeah, and goal differential. If I were Leeds, I'd be worried about that getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, because theirs was pretty good up until this past weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, they conceded 11 goals or something crazy in the last 2 games. So, yeah, that's what's really hurting them. So, you're right.
All right, so before we move on to another section here, let's also talk a little bit about the FA Cup because the semifinals are this weekend, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
They play the semifinals at Wembley, right? Not just the
Correct.
finals?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's Manchester City versus Sheffield United, Brighton, Hove Albion versus Manchester United. We could be looking at an all-Manchester FA Cup final.
Very, very likely. Although, I'll be honest with you, I think Brighton might get the upset result here.
Yeah.
They've been playing extremely well. Obviously, not too far outside of the top 4, kind of fighting for definitely a European spot. They've just been very consistent, even with the new manager that came in. I wouldn't be surprised if Brighton wins that. I know there are a lot of Brighton fans are excited. They haven't been to a final since probably the early 80s. I actually when they played Manchester United in the final, I remember that game. So I think they've got a really good chance. It'd be nice to see a Manchester City-Manchester United final. I think Man City is definitely a lock. I mean, I can't see them losing to Sheffield United, but you never know.
Yeah.
But the other one is a little bit more of a pick-em, I think.
If they do, I want an investigation immediately revolving gambling. Because somebody will have made a fortune on that gamble, right?
That's right. Yeah, there's no question. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of money you put on that one, because that would be a major upset. That's a 16 over a 1 in the NCAA tournament. That's
exactly.
How I see it.
Although it has happened. All right.
Yeah.
Free kicks is so next week we'll discuss that as well.
For sure.
Free kicks is brought to you by the Illinois Youth Soccer Association.
Illinois Youth Soccer is proudly serving the Illinois soccer community since 1975 and has a strong history of credibility. Illinois Youth Soccer is a non-profit corporation, official state association, and charter member of the U.S. Soccer Federation, administers U.S. Soccer Federation coaching programs, the Olympic Development Program, and U.S. Soccer Federation referee programs. For more information, go to illinoisyouthsoccer.org.
Okay, time for your favorite part of the show.
Time now to guess the Premier League star.
Okay, so this one is a little harder than the usuals. He is 28 years old and has played with his current club for 10 years. Okay? But that club has only been in the Premier League since 2017-2018. Okay? And he's been on that club the whole time. So he came up with them from the championship.
Mm-hmm.
He's English.
Okay.
He grew up in the Crystal Palace youth program, but never played for them. He's also never played for the national team. At least at the, the first team level.
Okay. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I love this player. I don't know if it is him. Could well be. Is he playing for a team that we just talked about earlier in Brighton and Hove Albion?
Wow. Yes. Yes.
And I've actually got him on my fantasy team. I think he's great. He's a winger, a wing back.
Yes. That was the next clue.
He's played over 200 times for Brighton. I'm going to go with Solomon Benjamin March.
That's right, Solly March.
Wow. And
I love him too. He's a great player.
Yeah. I think I like him more because I know back in my days, back in the days of when I played, which was very average.
Last century.
I played that last century. I played that similar position, and I probably can really associate with his work rate moving up and down. He's the type of player that scores goals when you need him, works his tail off, gets up and down the sideline. He's that type of a player that's just always there and thereabouts. And I know he's been an under-21 player for England, but he's just technically good. Reminds me of myself. Bags of energy, box-to-box player. although he's got a left foot, and I never had a left foot. But hey, great player though. I really liked him a lot.
Do you think he'll ever play for the national team?
I think he's in the form for sure that he could definitely get a look. The bad thing, you hate to say it, he's just a little older, 28, but that's, pretty much a peak kind of time,
Right.
To see. The issue is we have so many outside. I mean, Ben Chilwell, obviously.
Right.
We've got all of these great left backs and right backs in England. It's just a bad timing on his part because of where he is. But I think he'd probably be a pretty good squad player and maybe worth a shot. And talking with quite a few Brighton fans, there's people that they rate him extremely highly, along with Lewis Dunk, who's the captain, and a couple of the other players. They get results, so he could be the difference this weekend in the FA Cup. We'll see.
Well, he was injured for a while last year, and Brighton went right down the crapper while he was gone. I mean, he made a huge difference on that team.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, you look at their team. There's not superstars there.
No,
but like I said, he's high energy, consistent, and that's what makes the difference for him. So yeah, he's a good one.
Let me ask you this: what was the clue that tipped you off, so I can not do that again?
I can't tell you that. Okay. I don't know. I think it was when I was thinking about how old he was, and then he'd been with the same team. So actually, the clue probably that helped me the most was the fact they hadn't been in the Premier League very long. So obviously that made me think, okay, it's a team that's been around for only 4 or 5 years. So automatically I went to Brighton, and then I just thought of those players, and then just kind of
All right.
Got lucky. Yeah, got lucky.
Next week we'll be getting 6th grade teacher names and stuff like that, and that's it. And you'll have to figure it out.
Hey, I couldn't find out the one last week, so there you go. So
right.
it depends.
All right, fair enough. It's time for this.
Now time for Adam's Weekend Soccer TV Tip.
All right, what do you got?
So obviously both FA Cup games,
right?
You know, you got. I think you definitely have to watch them.
When are they?
It's a bit of a. So you got them on Saturday and Sunday. So the game on Saturday is at I think 8:45, something like that, maybe 9 o'clock, around about that time. Actually, maybe a little bit later, 10:45 on Saturday, and then on Sunday it's going to be around about 10:30 again too. So both of those games are on ESPN Plus, so you have to catch them on there. But for obviously looking at the, you still got a selection of games. Some teams aren't playing just because they would have been playing the 4 teams that are in there. But I think this is going to be a pretty good game on Sunday. So you can watch this one before you watch the FA Cup. So it's 8 o'clock Sunday morning, Newcastle at home after a big loss against Spurs. I think it's going to be a really good one. So Newcastle, Tottenham Hotspur, at St. James's Park, I think it'll be a really good game. So definitely catch that one. There's some good matches as well. Arsenal at Southampton. You got first against last, which is always kind of fun. And then Liverpool, Nottingham Forest. But I think the game to watch, Newcastle Spurs, 8 o'clock Sunday morning. Tune in before you watch it on USA, before you watch your FA Cup semi-final.
Okay. Free Kicks is brought to you by Green White Soccer Club. That's a club that has tryouts coming out this week, so be sure to check them out online. Green White provides a great travel soccer program for kids of all ages, led by former World Cup player and coach Mustafa Edders. Go to greenwhitesoccer.org. All right, so we have people to thank. We've got to give special thanks to executive producer Tony Lasano with opishows.com. Opie is hippo backwards, OPPIH shows.com. We're distributed by Ed Silla with Radio Misfits. Great Talk Radio isn't dead. It just moved to a better place, radiomisfits.com. And we'll be back again next week. We'll have FA Cup coverage. We'll have coverage of the big match to win the Premier League and so much more with a brand new edition of Free Kicks. The preceding was a presentation of Opie Productions. Find our other great shows wherever you find podcasts, including opishows.com. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of Opie Productions.
Tony, can you shut up?